Western Kenya, where he led faithfuls and other leaders in attending a church service. His Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, chose Jesus Palace of Praise Church, Mwatate, in Taita Taveta County for Sunday worship and Thanksgiving service. Immediate former DP Rigathi Gachagua, on the other hand, remained in the capital city at Priesthood Fellowship Church in Kahawa West, Roysambu constituency. Other leaders are slowly and robustly making their way back into the pulpits. Now, George Maringa interrogates in this report.
For a country that is highly religious with a majority Christian population, even the Constitution of Kenya acknowledges the supremacy of God in its preamble, which states, and I quote, "We, the people of Kenya, acknowledging the supremacy of the Almighty God of all creation," end of quote. It therefore follows that Sundays have been days of worship. Sunday, while President William Ruto worshipped at Ekambuli Church of God, Huisero, Kakamega County, Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki settled for the coast as former DP Rigathi Gachagua was in Nairobi, and KANU National Chairman Gideon Moi worshipped at AIC Milimani. Elected leaders have not shied away from taking to the pulpit, events that have attracted a myriad of reactions. There is a consensus that you cannot separate church from the state, a view that Reverend Mark Echakara of God's Kingdom Generals International holds.
First of all, because the church is an important platform where people congregate and the communities congregate, and politicians are part of the community. And so it just does happen that these politicians are also members of the congregation, and the church cannot decide who comes in and who doesn't come in. It is important also people understand that whenever leaders are in the midst of a gathering of a community, it's important for people to know what leadership is doing, what leaders are thinking, what ideas do they have, what plans do they have.
A section of churches had banned politicians from addressing congregations when they attend the church services.
It's also very important to note that the reason why politicians go to church is because of the influence of the church in this society. And if you look at even other democracies like in the US, you find the conservatives, who are mainly the evangelicals, who are the church, they also make a very big chunk of influence when it comes to politics. And you see, like Donald Trump, the way he got into power, he was behind the evangelicals. So it shows the power of the church. In my personal opinion, there's a compromise which has been there. The church should not give the politicians opportunities in the altar to address the nation or to address people. It should be able to allow them to speak to the people outside the church.
Dr. Kamau Wairuri, a Kenyan political scientist and lecturer at Edinburgh Napier University, holds the view that the church has deviated from its original course.
What we are seeing now is a scenario where the church has become a pulpit or a megaphone for the political elite, and providing an avenue for political propaganda. So the way that the church used to champion the rights of the people, champion more democracy, more respect for human rights, we are not seeing that much now. And it's become very difficult to convince people that the church leaders are not doing this because they're being paid or that they're getting any benefits from it, right? So whether this is true or not, it has to discredit the institution, which is definitely not a good thing.
There is the expectation of what the church ought to do vis-a-vis the reality in the 21st century, and opinion is still divided.
I don't think it's a bad thing, and I don't think there should necessarily be control, because then if the church decides to put control, then the church also gets sucked into the political aspect of their interaction with leadership. It is important for the church leaders and the church to understand the place of leadership and why it is important for the voice of leaders to be heard. Not really in the context of politics, because a political leader, first of all, when they come, they are leaders. So we don't see them as a politician. We see them, first of all, as leaders. And leaders are the voice of the people.
Our praise worship is a sacred place, is a consecrated place. but we bring politics of hatred, we bring politics of, abusing the people in the other, opposition or opposition in the government. So I think let's not defile the church. My personal view is let them come to church because they are children of God, but let them address the church outside the church.
For religious leaders, it's very important for them to remember that the church and religious institutions are avenue for people to heal and for people to find solace when they are having a lot of difficulties in their lives. So it is a bit of an affront to show up to church where you want to get peace, you want to get spiritual nourishment, and instead to end up being served politics, which is not what people really sign up when they go to church. So the religious...
When all is said and done, eyes are on how the church and state, church and politics correlate in the face of divergent opinion if the aftermath of the Gen Z protests and the church dynamics were anything to go by. George Maringa, TV 47.